Welcome back, ReaderHouse Author Roundtable fans. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin with one of the more unusual interviews I've had the pleasure of doing over the years with Lynn Haley, author of From the Mind of a Waitress.
Alice, right?
Yeah.
Are you the original Alice that I spoke to several years ago when I was looking to submit my book?
Probably. I've been at this a while.
Oh my God, your voice sounds familiar.
How long ago are we talking?
18?
2018. Okay. What was the name of your book?
From the Mind of a Waitress.
This is From the Mind of a Waitress.
Yeah, I know.
So what happened in 2018?
I got my 10 copies and I burst into tears. I was like, what are you going to do? You going to scratch this or are you going to actually write a freaking book? And so I got on my pity pot for 6 months and then I said, no, I'm going to write this damn book. And so I rewrote the whole damn thing.
Wait a minute. So we talked about From the Mind of a Waitress in 2018, had a nice interview, nice conversation, and you never released the book.
No, I revamped the entire thing.
What made you revamp the entire thing?
Because when I wrote the book, it was only 8,000 words. I was under the impression in my own head, for whatever reason, this mental glitch, that to be repetitive would have been redundant. But as a comedian, I also know that redundancy can be hilarious. And so after that book showed up, I was like, no, this is not, no. And so I picked up tens of thousands of scraps of paper that I had, thrown to the floor, so to speak, and I rewrote the whole damn thing.
You're too funny.
I added another 48,000 words to it and 50,000 words to it and rewrote the thing, and I love it.
Let me ask you this. You're a full-time comedian?
No. I'm a waitress.
You're still a waitress?
Of course I'm still a waitress.
Where?
Well, I can't tell you that.
Why?
Because.
How are you going to promote your book if you can't tell me where you're a waitress?
I don't have to. Because I don't have to. Because, well, first of all, I've gotten myself scheduled, by the way, to over 100 podcasts right now. I'm working on, I'm hoping to get onto the Joe Rogan Experience. I think I have a good shot. He just doesn't know it yet.
How did you get yourself on 100 podcasts?
I get up every day and I network on LinkedIn.
More information, please, because this is the number one issue for all authors, how to get their book out there. So what's your process?
You got to be a freaking pit bull. The thing is, you either know your book is good or not. And, I do a little bit of research on each podcaster and what their genre is and so on. Obviously, I'm not going to get on one that's, talks about, 18th century swamp grass. You know what I mean? So, not really applicable. So I make sure that it's, in the scope and I'll do anything from, if they have 100 followers to 10,000 plus. Obviously I'm kind of looking for the larger ones because, I want to get the biggest bang for my buck, so to speak.
But they're looking for content, man.
Right. And I try to do 2 for each state.
That's great.
So that I, try to saturate the market. But then I turned myself into an LLC. I bought my domain name because, if you don't plan for success, if and when it comes, you're not prepared. So I'm preparing myself. I created a website, which is banging. I'm copyrighted, trademark, logo, you name it. I do like my logo. It's my initials with this megaphone because I got a big old mouth.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So here's the deal though. From the Mind of a Waitress. It's not the first book out there about, your experiences as a waitress. So I'm assuming that you've had some pretty unique experiences.
I have. And actually, let me stop you for a hot second because it is almost the first. There is a dude back in 2009, can't think of his name,
right?
Who wrote a book and, similar vein kind of thing. And other than that, though, as far as I know, I'm the only other person to have written a book like this, because there is hospitality groups out there ad nauseum, how to create greater productivity within your staff. It's like puke, shut the hell up. And then you've got, chefs and other people who do the back of the house, but nobody ever wants to talk about the front of the house. What the day in the life, good, bad, and ugly of the front lines servers, what it's like, and guess what? There's no pause button. So if my bra breaks, and my butt cheek is blowing up because the babysitter's calling with my phone in my pants, and I can't show it on my face when I'm talking to the customer who's taken 9 years asking me what's gluten-free,
right.
And this stuff is my book is hilarious, but I do have, because each chapter is like a running mental commentary of a day in the life.
Okay.
And quick little synopsis. I got the lady who comes in with the see-through pants. That's hilarious. That I think has a big giant rash on her ass. Come find out it's not, but you got to read my book to figure it out. Then you have when my bra does break.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I'm entering the party room and I got to have my, hands up over my chest because my nipples are sticking out because the room's too cold. And then later on that night, come to find out a secret shopper had been there who sent an email complaint in talking about how inappropriate it was I didn't wear a bra to work. And I'm thinking, well, bitch, I started with one, and then there is, the lady with the emotional support dog. Cause in today's world, you can bring your freaking iguana in and we can't say shit. So, we got that one.
What kind of a restaurant is it? It's not a diner.
Well, this is a compilation of all the places I've worked.
Okay.
Now, the setting, the reader can tell that I work at a waterfront restaurant.
Okay.
At the time, at one of the points in time that I was writing my book, I was working there. But it is also, like I said, a compilation. So it's the fancy French places, the mom and pop, the national chain. It's the hole in the joint wing places where I duck so I don't get punched in the face. So it's a little bit of everything all kind of rolled into one book.
Okay.
There is, when I was telling you earlier how there is no pause button, you have to come to work and you're supposed to be composed and you're supposed to leave, your life at the door. And this is, by all means, this is most jobs across the world. You leave however, because you're on the front lines, sometimes that's not always possible. You're not in a cubicle somewhere hidden away. You are right there in front of the customer and you're doing customer service.
Right.
So, they can see, whether or not your fingernails are dirty. They can see your messy hair. They can see like when my shoe broke and I'm doing this hop side step combo kind of thing. I went horseback riding and I was in a bit of a mood. And when I went horseback riding, and this isn't applicable to the work, but this is the thing, because when you're on the front lines, life outside comes in and it bleeds into your job, whether you like it or not.
Okay.
And because you are on the front lines and the customers are right there and there's nowhere for you to hide, you have to go up to that table, whether you want to or not. And you have to play it off and you have to play nice and you need to smile and you need to say the right verbiage and tell them the specials and you have to be on. Even when you're not ready, you still have to be on, just like this interview. And so when I went horseback riding, this damn horse ate half my hair. I mean, we're talking about, I was screaming like a banshee, took huge chunks out of my hair. And the scabs keep trying to grow, but every time I brush my hair, I they come off and I look like I've got highlights and lowlights and, blood streaks in my hair. And, I got this big old pimple on my lip and, looks like I got freaking herpes. And
how did a horse eat your hair?
I don't know, man. That they keep telling you always hear that adage, just get back on the horse. Right. And apparently I just keep trying to do that, like literally. I've had some episodes with horses, man. I don't know. They don't like my pheromones or something. I got to work, and I mean, I look like total dog shit, and I had this one guy, and I swear to God, between my hair and the big old pimple on my lip and everything else, he didn't know where to look, so he just kind of gravitated to my boobs, and I was like, okay, well, at least from the front, that's the only good looking thing he's got to look at. So I mean, just let it roll. I mean, that's just life as a server.
So you're happy now. You're happy that we had an interview in 2018 and you went back and rewrote the book.
Yeah, I just basically said, no, I'm not publishing this. It's the best thing I ever did. I sat down and I kind of had a heart to heart with myself. And I was like, look, you talk about writing this book. You want people to know, because even though my book I wrote my primary audience to be for servers, so we can just basically laugh with one another about, our job. But also it's to let customers know. I've had customers who seriously, I had some a table that wouldn't leave, right? They were the last tables, we're giving them huge hints. I'm, got the other person vacuuming in the other room. I'm sweeping around you, trying to dim the lights, the whole bit. And they said, oh, well, you get overtime. It's okay if we stay.
No.
And overtime, I make $3.63 an hour. I mean, and a lot of people think that tipping is a bonus to our salary. It's like, you've got to be kidding. People have no clue. And in Middle Earth, Nebraska, it's $2.12 an hour.
Middle Earth, Nebraska. Got to go there.
Really?
Lynn, are you going to keep writing, honey?
Definitely. I found, yeah. It's kind of like, what am I going to do when I grow up? And, oh, hey, ding, ding, ding. And, I figured it out.
All right. Well, listen, I wish you the best of luck.
Oh, God. Is the interview over? How did I do?
You did great. You did great. You have great energy.
Oh, my God. It's so nice to talk to you again.
I just think it's funny you remembered. That's really...
Yeah. Because you told me Alice in Wonderland. That's how you told me to remember you.
That's very true.
See, I remember.
You remember.
I remember.
All right, Lynn Haley, from the mind of a waitress. Better luck this time.
Thanks, Alice.
On a more serious note, last week we interviewed Adnan Musallam, who shared his book, From Bethlehem to the U.S. He is a Christian Palestinian American who was educated right here in the U.S. from the time he was a teenager. He received a BA, an MA, and a Ph.D. He also served in the U.S. Navy with honors. He is back this week to talk about his book, Posthumous Impact on Radical Islamists and Global Jihadists, The Life and Thought of Sayyid Qutb. In this book, he delves into the mind of a terrorist who had a significant impact on the people who were involved in 9/11.
This posthumous impact started as a dissertation, as a doctorate dissertation. Okay? That's how it started, as a dissertation. But it's different than the book. It's different a little bit than the book. The dissertation started when I consulted with my doctoral let me say consultant, Professor Mitchell at the University of Michigan. Okay, he was an expert on the Muslim Brothers of Egypt, and he wrote very, very, very important book, The Society of Muslim Brothers. That was maybe around, when I talked to him, it was about 1980. At that time, I wasn't too much informed about the Muslim Brothers. And I sat down with him and we talked about his expertise. And I was, wondering, what do I need to do about my dissertation? What topic do I need to do about my dissertation? And he said, and he suggested different topics. Okay. And one of the topics that he suggested was Sayyid Qutb. Okay, this guy, Sayyid Qutb, was very important because back in 1966, he was executed by President Nasser of Egypt, Abdel Nasser of Egypt, because of his ideas that were spreading all over the world. Okay, And so I was convinced that maybe I need to look at this guy. Maybe I need to study this guy a little bit further. And I will give him a final word whether I want to continue with this subject or not. And that's what I did. I kept studying and reading, and I found out that that many people were writing about the subject. Many people. That is, I was not the first person that was writing about this guy. On the contrary, there are tens and tens of books about the guy. But the most problem about writing about the guy, that most of the people that were writing about him were partisans, were radical Islamists, were radical Islamists, but they were not very positive about it. Luckily, I'm happen to be Christian Palestinian, Christian, okay? I'm not zealous, I'm not radical. I can be objective. I can be very objective about this matter. And that's what I did. That's what I did. I approached the matter with objectivity, and I try to be also a human being. I dealt with this person, as a human being, because he started as a secular person. Okay, he's a Muslim, he's Islamic-oriented person, but he was a secular person, like the literati of his time, secular. He separated between religion and life. Okay, he was a poet. He was educator. He taught elementary education and stuff like that. He was university educator, you know. And I was impressed with the guy. I tried to be empathize with him. I even though objective, I tried to empathize with him and stuff like that. And I like him because I strengthened myself in Arabic. I read everything in Arabic, and I became more versed in Arabic. Like I told you, I lost my Arabic at a certain stage, and I start to recover my Arabic a little bit gradually. And
this guy, prolific writer, very educated guy, he's killed by the Nasser regime.
Why was he executed? Sayyid Qutb, now the thing about Sayyid Qutb is that at a certain point in his life, yes, he was secular-oriented person, but then there was transformation in his life. There was transformation in his thought. Gradually, he became more and more Islamist.
Radicalized.
Later on, and now why was he radicalized? Because President Nasser, at a certain stage, he put him in prison for almost about 10 years. He was in prison for 10 years, and he was radicalized more and more in prison. Okay? And his writings even were more radicalized in prison. Okay? And even though Nasser was becoming more grounded, more popular in the Arab world, yes, President Nasser of Egypt was becoming more popular. And even personally, I believed in him at a certain stage in my life, President Nasser of Egypt. And why was he afraid of people like Qutb? Why he had to execute him, even though Abdel Nasser, he was in a strong position in the Arab world. Why did he have to execute him? You know, when he executed him, he made him a martyr.
Right.
For this. That's why I'm saying the posthumous impact of Qutb on radical Islamists and global jihadists, because he was very influential on these people, on Az-Zawahiri.
And on the blind cleric, Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman, who was directly involved in 9/11 as well. I mean, to think this man started out as a positive force in the world.
I like this guy, but I don't like certain things, of course. Of course, you know, I tried as much as possible to point out the torture and the suffering of this man. He really suffered a lot. He was sick. He was sick all his life. He had so many ailments, you know. And I don't know, I just felt for the sufferings. I knew he suffered in the prisons of Abdel Nasser. I knew he suffered a lot. But also he generalized too much. He was in the States. He visited the States. He spent a year visiting the States. And he generalized about the States, about American society. And I criticize him for that. Okay, American society has many dirty things. I know that. I lived there. But there are many good people in the States. I know that too. Why do you need to generalize about the States? Every society has dirty people. I know that. Why do you have to? I lived in the States. I know the good people. I know
Right.
bad people.
So
Okay.
he fed that hatred of our society, of our
Yeah, about
culture,
all
the way we live.
Western societies. You
Yes.
could see it in his writings, and I showed all his writings here. And I showed many people who were influenced by him, like Abdullah Azzam, like these, like Al-Ayman al-Zawahiri, like Sheikh Umar Abdul Rahman,
Yep.
who were very much influenced by him. And it's a good scholarly work.
I mean, you're trying to help us understand that he was a human being, and this is what can happen.
He was great in literary criticism. He was great in his writings. He was great in many things. I believe that, Sayyid Qutb. He was great in many things, but he decided to go in the other way. That's it.
All right, Adnan. Obviously, you're going to keep writing, and I hope you can come back to Michigan, where you were educated, and talk about your book. And I look forward to talking to you again. The name of your book, "The Posthumous Impact on Radical Islamists and Global Jihadists: The Life and Thought of Sayyid Qutb, 1906 to 1966." Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alice. Thank you very much.
Waymonya P. Kitchens is a special ed teacher and the wife of a pastor who inspired her book, Eddie James Remembers.
I have family members that are diagnosed as well as undiagnosed hyperactive. And one in particular happens to be my middle son. And we call him Rudy James. His middle name is James. And he was just one of those kids that just ripped through the house everywhere he went, But however, I didn't go with the concept that my husband wanted. He wanted me to go with a book entitled No, Rudy James. But, I realized that I think it was another book that kind of took that title away called No, David. By David Shannon. And so I said, no, we're not going to do that. But I've always had a love for writing, and I kind of wanted to continue. And I thought, well, hey, this is the best time now to go ahead and try to get it published and on paper.
How long have you been writing?
Well, I started actually writing when I was about 10 years old. And I started with poetry and little jingles and things like that. But the only other piece that I've actually published was a poem entitled Beauty on the Mantle. And I actually published it, it was a long time ago, I guess about 1995 or something like that.
When you were but a child.
Yeah, it was in a Poetic Voices of America volume.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did something specific happen that enabled you to move forward with this?
Yeah, actually, our daughter is an airman in England, and we went to visit her. And it just took a weekend. I was sitting there. We both like to drink tea, and I just started writing it. The book is like an animation anyway in my memory. So all I had to do at that point was to organize and call the publishers.
Oh my gosh. What did you come up with?
The book is a juvenile piece. It's a friendly fiction book. It's about a young hyperactive boy named Eddie, who also he lives with his mom, he lives with his grandpa, and he has a neighbor around the same age named Brad. And basically, Eddie is a hyperactive boy who is always forgetting to do the simplest of things, personal care tasks, household chores, things that his mom would basically ask him to do or things that was expected of him to do. he always seemed to forget about them or forgot to do them. And so, his condition of being forgetful is kind of coupled with, his grandpa's forgetfulness, who seemed to also have an issue a little bit deeper than his. So basically, a few things that Eddie would forget is to put his shirt on. His mom would basically say, Eddie, go put your shirt on. And it got to the point where he would walk around, with his undershorts on and forget to put his pants on. He forgot to put his socks on. And, and a lot of these things were the things that my kid would do. He would rip through the house in his little underpants, and he was all over the place. And it didn't matter if he was on the front porch or if he was in the backyard.
He had things to do.
He had things to do.
So how does Eddie feel when he's constantly being told, hey, you forgot this, you forgot that?
Well, he had this, feeling of regret and that, okay, I'm forgetting these, but, I'm going to have to address this. So he did address that with his mom. Previous to that, he became a great big helper. And so that was a little self-inspiring for him, because he realized, I'm having this issue with forgetting everything, but my grandpa also has the same issue. And he addresses that with his mom, and he says, well, I'm sorry, Mom, I'm always forgetting things. But she assures him, that it's okay to forget as long as we have someone to help us remember. And so that's pretty much the takeaway from the book.
So he helps his grandfather remember?
Yes.
How does he do that?
Well, his grandpa basically got tied up into his controllers, his game controllers. And his grandpa had an accident, which a lot of older people do, as well as young ones, because I read the story to my class of students. And, a lot of them can kind of, agree with, hey, that this is an issue that's not only in my house, but some of us have the same issue. So he helps his grandpa get a bath. And his friend also helps with that bath and gets his grandpa cleaned up and everything. And so he feels really good about this, that he's actually remembered, hey, I'm remembering to do some things. I'm remembering to give grandpa some medicine, the medicine cup, so Mom can give him the medicine. And I'm sorry that I forget things, but I remember this time.
Oh, how old is Eddie?
Eddie is 8 years old. He's about 8 years old, and Brad is about 8 years old as well.
So how did your kids react when you read it to them?
They were more amazed that my name was on the book. Because they continue to say, Miss Kitchen, did you write this book? And then they became more inspired that they can actually pick up a book off of the bookshelf in the classroom and say, my teacher wrote this book.
That's nice, though. It's a good lesson for your children. It's a good lesson for all children.
Yes, I think so too. I really do. I think so too.
So what's next?
I'm reaching out to local companies and libraries. Right now I have began getting my book cataloged in my school setting. It's also cataloged in the library, in my local library. And I'm trying to do that with some bookstores as well. And I'm learning, along the way how to actually do this. So I'm basically on a journey now and next year of how to help self-promote this.
Great. You're going to keep writing?
Yes, absolutely. I have a whole mental library of books to put on paper, and some of them are children's books. Some of them are adult books, novels. But I think I will go with another children's book it's actually a poem that I'm going to make into a book.
Great. All right. Waymonya P. Kitchens, Eddie James Remembers. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Dot Cavalier ran a daycare for 2 decades, and she wrote a couple of stories a few years back, but had to wait until she was semi-retired and raising her granddaughter before she could take the time to publish. And now we have TJ's special surprise. And this is part of a series, right? Entitled Cajun Princess Odette.
Yes, I'm trying to do a series. I have 7 manuscripts written, and I'm trying to publish one at a time.
Well, it sounds like you're trying to educate us on what life is like in the bayou.
Yes, a lot of it's through experience, because I was born and raised on the bayou by a large swamp in the Pierre Part, Louisiana area.
Who's TJ based on?
Well, one of my siblings, and then I use my imagination to make stories. So he's a fictional character. They all are.
Did you have a lot of siblings?
Yes, 13 altogether.
That's amazing. So tell me the story of Cajun Princess Odette.
Cajun Princess Odette is the name of the series. And in the stories, I'm actually Cajun Princess Odette. It's a fiction story that's based on a Cajun family who lived on the bayou near a large swamp in South Louisiana. And this first book of mine basically introduces the characters and tells about some of the challenges that each day brings. And TJ's the main character in this particular book. He's a young boy that's growing up, and he has so many chores and so much responsibility.
What kinds of chores and responsibilities does he have?
Well, in those days, we had no electricity, no gas, no water. So he had to help cut wood for the fire. And he had to make sure it stayed dry all the time. He had to cover it every day when he went out to get some to bring to the houseboat. He had to feed the chickens, take care of the hunting dogs. When the dad was away in the swamp, TJ was supposed to be responsible for the family, and he started this at a very young age, like 5 years old.
Oh my!
Back then, we didn't have a lot of playtime. Mostly learning how to work like your parents worked.
And you lived on a houseboat, so you're in the middle of the bayou, right? You're in the middle of the water?
Yes. Well, the first houseboat that I was born in was like a little shack. It was a 1-room houseboat. There was a curtain in the corner to use as like a little private bath area, but the rest was just one little room. It was very shabby. It wasn't like a nice campboat. And then when I was 4 years old, we moved to another part of the river, tied up at the bank, and later on there, my father built a bigger houseboat. So I lived in a houseboat most of my life till I was in high school.
What'd you do for water?
We had gutters around the edge of the houseboat roof, and the water would just run off the roof and into the gutters. And then we had, these were called like drums that we stored the water in, and the rain water would just go into these drums.
So there was no filtering, no Brita, no filtering system.
No. When I think back, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I drank that water.
Yeah, and lived to tell about it.
Yes, really.
Okay, so TJ's got a lot of work to do. No wonder he wants to find somebody that he can just sit down and talk to.
Yes, he dreams about it all the time, and he's talked to his parents about getting a baby brother is what he wanted, and a baby sister to tell secrets to. And you know how children like to play a little bit, which he didn't have much time to play, but then he created friends with the critters of Louisiana. We have a lot of critters here.
What kind of critters?
Squirrels, rabbits, chickens, raccoons, alligators, snakes. So he had made friends with the raccoons. Were his favorite, because once you start feeding a raccoon, he'll keep coming back every day for his breakfast and lunch.
Really? Like a cat?
Yes, exactly.
Are they friendly to humans if you feed them?
Well, if you start very young, they're very like babies, they can.
Did the rabbits end up on your table?
Yes. Not the ones that we had as pets, but wild rabbits. Yes, that's what we lived off of, was game meat and rice and white beans and potatoes. That was about most of our food.
In writing these books, is there a lesson in each book?
Yes, it's different for each book, but I always try to end my books with a positive sentence or a positive paragraph. So this one ends with bonsoir, which means good night till the Cajuns wake up to more adventures. See you soon with their next adventure. And it's telling them how my parents taught us that your word was your honor back in those days. Like, we didn't lie. We were scared to death to lie because we were always taught that your word was your honor.
What did your dad do for a living?
He lived off the land.
That's hard to wrap your head around in this day and age, right?
I know. My children say, well, how old are you, Mom? 100 or something? That you didn't have any of this and any of that? My dad was a fisherman. He set lines for catfish. He was a catch crabs with lines for crabs or crab nets. He did crawfishing. He did a lot of hunting. Picked Spanish moss to sell. When I was little, growing up, my brother and I had to go find lizards, catch lizards to sell, little baby turtles, grasshoppers, and I was scared to death of all those things.
Wow. This is a great education for anybody who wants to visit that area.
It is. And we have a lot of people that come from New York, all northern states, and they're also curious about Cajun life. And I have a lot of friends that have purchased one of my books. And Fulton has really helped me out because I've got ads on social media all over. It's like I'm still in awe that a little Cajun girl is on the internet everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
That's great.
I am doing some book signing locally, and I was reading where my book is even selling in the UK, which I was all excited about that. I could just feature my little book just floating on the waves going to the UK.
That's right. Floating across the pond there.
Yes.
You say your book is illustrated by Joyce Daigle. Is that how you say her name?
Yes, Joyce Daigle. She's my niece, actually. And yes, she's doing all my illustrations. She's working the second one now.
All right. Well, I look forward to your next book. This one, TJ's Special Surprise. And you are Cavalier. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I hope we get to talk again with the next book.
We will. I'm going to put you on my schedule.
All right. Thanks.
Avi Emuna has been writing for some time in several different languages, but this book, entitled I Love You, Michael, was inspired by a particular event.
This love story, I Love You, Michael, it's just happened, about a few years ago. I have a friend that passed away in 2019 by overdose. And I decided that, maybe write a book. And many years ago, going back, I met a young girl. We were dating for some time. And then she revealed to me that she was taking drugs. And it popped to me that maybe I'll write a book about it, combining drugs and a love story together. And I sat down and I started writing, and to become a book, and hopefully people will be able to, find the book and read it. And especially today with all the drugs and, many young people dying by overdose drugs. So it's a real epidemic.
What's the drug of choice here?
It's a general, doesn't specifically talking about particular drug.
Okay.
Just in general, drug addiction, the challenges that come with that. It's a fiction, but it's based on a true story.
Okay.
I met a young girl, and I decided I'm going to write a book since, as I mentioned, a friend of mine died by overdose.
Okay.
So it's basically talking about a young girl coming, from a nice family and fell into drugs addiction. She's a young girl, teenager, and she met a young guy. He introduced her to drugs, and slowly got into it and become addicted to the drugs. And that's the main story, that her living a life of taking drugs and doing everything just to support her addiction, like doing prostitution.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but really it's for people that taking drugs and not just people taking drugs, any kind of addiction, can be alcoholism, can be gambling, any kind of challenging in life in general. It'll just express the pain that the person goes through, what he's going through. And I personally went to the street and personally was, talking to people that taking drugs, and a lot of my knowledge is by, talking to people. And but it's ended very well. It has a good end, and it's given really a lot of hope for people who want to, to overcome this addiction, any addiction. And this book is about drugs, but could be, as I mentioned, could be gambling, drinking. People have, challenges in life, family, work, financially, spiritually. So that's really, the book give you some hope. They tell you that, there's a way to get out, just, to take the initiative, and you can get to the point that you can be independent and live a normal life. So the story is, it's a love story. Eventually she meets this young girl, which is me. It's a fiction, but, she meets a young man and she falls in love with him, and slowly, he helped her to get out of it. He talked to her about her and asked her to, to get help, get some treatment, and go for a rehab. In the beginning, she was a little bit afraid to do that. She already addicted to drugs and it become part of her life. It's different to change. When you're into something, it's sometimes scary for especially people that in that level of going so low, changing is very challenging. So you have to convince her that she has to do it, and there is a lot of frustration, and but eventually she almost died, and she found herself in a hospital, and she decided, she got to the point that she had really to do something about it, and her boyfriend come to her help and tell her he's going to do everything to take care of her and, help her and support her, also financially to be able to go to rehab. Eventually they get married. And living normal life.
I mean, that's miraculous, because people who are addicted.
Yeah, you have to have really very strong commandment. And she said in the story, she got married. Even since she was married and she already had a child, she was afraid to go back to the neighborhood because it can pull her back to to drugs. And eventually she said she have to go back there and help young girls that are doing it and doing prostitution, and to support her habit.
Yeah.
And she said that's her her mission in life now, because she went through that. She lived it, and she know what is it, and she can help. And she get the degree in social worker, and she decided that's what her purpose in life now. It's a beautiful story. It can be a beautiful movie also. We'll see how this book gonna go. I hope you'll be able to go well, and people read it and be able to sell it.
All right. Avi Emuna. I love you, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And hopefully we can hear from each other again.
Nancy E. Ryan has been writing since she was a kid. In fact, she's got a couple of books just waiting to be published. And we're going to start with Choose Who Survives. So you say you were inspired by your nieces?
Well, actually, totally, because I had them in Menards, and this woman walked by in a fur coat, and I looked around and went, oh my God, what is that smell? And she about beat the crap out of me. She actually got escorted out. And later my nieces went, that's pot, Aunt Nancy. And I'm like, oh. So I was making fun of people being rude. I was making fun of, the smell, how smells affect us and everything like that. I was making fun of a lot of things. I made fun of cussing because, everybody cusses, and then some people take it offensively, and, you don't understand that. And, I was making fun of a lot of things in there.
What does that have to do with your book?
I think we take a lot of things really seriously, and then the things that really matter passes us by, and that we don't realize it till we're too late.
Okay.
It is about a bunch of kids who actually just had come back from a party they ended up staying too long for, and they went home, went to bed, and woke up and realized that while they were gone, their entire community had been evacuated, and, stumbled into a lot of fun things that happened. Not fun.
Are they supernatural, or what's going on?
Yeah. Well, they ended up partying with a creature somebody created that was eliminating everybody, but because they stunk, they survived because the creature didn't find them as food.
And what did they smell of?
A lot of them smelled like pot, and then I picked on a lot of other things.
Like what?
Like, engine oil and stuff like that when they were gunpowder and stuff like that. A lot of smells are kind of offensive.
Okay, and the creature didn't like the way these teenagers smelled.
So they didn't eat with them, they just played with them.
Oh, that's nice. Was it one creature or many creatures?
It was many creatures. It was
many creatures.
Yes.
And they took over the community.
No, they ended up dying in the end, but the people who created them did not successfully create them, so.
Well, what was the purpose of taking over the community?
It was a natural habitat thing. They ate them, actually.
They ate them?
Yeah.
So how did the kids react? What's the dynamic between the kids and the creature?
The kids didn't even know they existed until later in the book, and they thought they were hallucinating and playing with things and stuff like that. So I told you I was making fun of a lot of things.
And these are things based on real experiences, like the woman who tried to beat you up. So these are the things that give you inspiration.
Yeah, I just like to make fun of people that irritate me.
And the teenagers are based on your nieces and nephews, or?
No, actually, I honestly believe that kids have a lot of potential, and most of the time when they're held back by reasons that, they can do a lot more, because in these teenagers, as they survive, they make their own community. I think I make fun of the fact that they build their own shower. They live in a cave and they build their own showers and stuff like that. And I made fun of a lot of stuff.
So as a result of these creatures eating their community, I mean, I'm assuming their parents got eaten?
They evacuated. They evacuated, most of them.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the teenagers thought they were hallucinating. At some point they realized they're not hallucinating, and they come together.
Yeah, they come together and they kind of build a community.
Well, what do they build besides showers?
Well, they had, fire pits. They built showers. They had a cave, which was a house. They made electricity and stuff like that from a creek and all that other stuff. They just amazing things that people are going, what? Because, the people who come to save them, they actually save them.
The kids actually save the people that came to save them?
Yep.
So the kids prove how resourceful they can be?
Yes.
Would you say that's the message of your book?
I believe that, mankind is capable of a lot of things. We're the only species that look at cold weather and go, we got to cover. The other ones just go hide and stuff like that. And we're the only species that kill and waste food. We make our own food. I mean, I do believe that as people, we have a lot of faults, but we also ignore the things that are good.
Is there a follow-up to this book?
I don't think so. I wrote it several years ago, and I know that it offended a lot of my more religious friends, because they don't understand that people that would be in this kind of party are not saints. They cuss, they do all this. I had one friend who read one chapter, And she says she had to put it down because she didn't want to start cussing. And then somebody else in church told her, well, you need to finish that book. And then she's like, you're right, Nancy, we're making fun of cussing. And I was like, okay. She says, it's not my type of book, but I found myself laughing and cheering for people and all this. I'm like, okay, I feel better now. I did say something on my Facebook account and all that, and I've got some friends working it, but basically, I wasn't anticipating the have to sell part. I share my books with Walmart and my friends that I've made. I'm old. I've had friends for a long time. There's friends that I had reading for me that are no longer living.
You're not that old. You're in your 50s. You're not that old.
Yeah, considering how many times things I've experienced, I'm pretty old.
All right. And you have how many more books left to publish?
At least about 22.
22 books? Nancy.
Yeah.
Come on, girl.
Well,
come on, you can do it.
Well, I had the Nasty Little Brats, Like You Better. That's going better because there's not as much cussing and everything. I call that one. I call the one that's published at Page my stinky book.
That's Choose Who Survives.
Yeah. And then I call the Nasty Little Brats my Jesus book. And then I call the next one I'm going to get done, Now and Forever After You, my Crybaby book. Okay. I got nicknames.
Nancy, you sound like a very creative person. You really do.
Well, back in grade school, I had teachers who told me that even though I'm really not that great with my spelling, that I'd be a great author and I could pay somebody to spell for me.
Great idea, Nancy. All right, Nancy E. Ryan, Choose Who Survives. Thanks so much. Tyler Ennis is a computer systems engineer who just in the last couple of years found a creative outlet through writing, and he delves into the world of horror and supernatural in his book, Halls of the Damned.
I've always kind of been into like horror thriller type stuff and like psychological thriller, supernatural stuff. And out of books I did read, I was always a huge fan of like the Stephen King style of writing, but I don't know if I have it in me to write like Stephen King thick book novels.
Yeah. Well, he's a pretty talented guy, Yeah.
And I'm always like, I don't like stories that drag on. Like, introduce me to what's going on and let's get to the point.
So, what'd you come up with?
I mean, I kind of took like a concept. I mean, I'm sure you can find them in other books and movies. Bunch of people show up to a place that's haunted.
Well, this is an abandoned asylum.
Yes.
Why an abandoned asylum?
I kind of took inspiration from, I think it's in Indiana or Kentucky. It's been on the Travel Channel and like ghost hunting TV shows and stuff. And I kind of took the inspiration from that. And have you ever seen the movie Shutter Island with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yes.
So I kind of took that as like psychological, like screw with your mind kind of stuff. Like, don't know what's happening next.
Okay.
Because people always think like the crazy worst things of asylums. You hear stuff and read stories from like back in the 40s and before that about all the crazy kind of experiments they would do on people who, were truly suffering from mental illness, and would put them through like, ice bath torture and electroshock therapy and all that stuff. So it's kind of like take all of that pain and torture in a dilapidated old building with a history. It kind of like just seeps in and nothing's ever done about it. And something about Blackwood Asylum has pulled these people all from different paths of life to this one place. And they have to figure out what brought them there and why it brought them there. And it's like a finding out who you truly are.
All right. You say like there's this malevolent force.
Yeah.
That's drawing all of these people in. Do they all have the same issue? And that is, they really don't know themselves, or they think they know themselves, or they all have their own demons?
It's more of they all have their own demons, like, drugs and stuff like that. I know I didn't really go into like the detail of each person, but some people are trying to find themselves and some people need to find themselves or who they truly are. instead of putting on like a face or facade or thinking they are someone or something, but deep down inside they know that they're meant for something different.
Or they think there's something that they're really not.
Yeah.
What is this supernatural thing going on?
I figured if you have an asylum, an old abandoned asylum, you got to have some kind of ghost.
So there are ghosts walking the asylum. They were in there. They were tortured.
Yeah. And like the pain of the torture, because there's, I would say, multiple different kinds of entities. There's ones who died and are stuck. There's ones who died tragic deaths. And usually the ones who died tragic deaths are the ones that stay behind and are more malevolent.
So it seems to me from reading your synopsis that it's not only about the people that are drawn there finding out what their own idiosyncrasies are, but also finding out about the people who died there and what happened. And is the kind of thing where they have to discover why some of these people died in order for them to move on to the afterlife kind of a thing?
Yeah. And it's coupled along with, as they're figuring this kind of stuff out, they're figuring themselves out along the way, if that makes sense.
Sure. What do they say? The things that we dislike the most in others are the things we dislike the most about ourselves.
Yeah, I would say so.
How is it for you talking about this to other people?
Friends and family, no. I mean, I know Fulton does like their kind of part, but other than that, I don't really know how else to get it out there. So I did publish 2 books, like self-published, before this one.
Okay.
And, I was posting on Instagram and Facebook and all kinds of stuff. And I had some sales,
What about this one?
I have not posted anything on this one. I was trying to kind of let the process with Fulton Books and doing the interviews and stuff take its course.
Okay. I talked to a woman just today, as a matter of fact. She went on LinkedIn and researched podcasts.
Yeah.
And found podcasts that talk about the kinds of things that she writes about, right?
Yeah.
You know that there's sci-fi podcasts out there and
Oh yeah.
Supernatural, aliens, right?
Yeah.
That might be a way for you to go. If you're not like into going to your local bookstore or library to talk about your book, gather friends together, have them bring their friends together, do a book signing.
Yeah.
Now,
mind you, what I'm about to say, if you were to see me in person, you would not think this of me.
Okay.
Because I'm like a decently tall person. I'm about 6 foot, 6'1", about 230 pounds.
Okay.
Beard down to my belly.
Really?
Yeah. So you wouldn't think that stuff like that would be scary to me, but since it is my first like real published book other than me doing it myself, I know it comes with the territory, but I don't want people to be like, oh, you suck, like.
Oh, Tyler, you're cracking me up. I'm thinking, Midwestern, cleanly shaved, buttoned up kind of a guy. You're not that at all. You're not that at all. That's so funny.
Bearded, tattooed from North Carolina. Like,
maybe the podcast route might be good for you because you speak well.
I try to.
Like if you're going to do the podcast route, I would get more into like really describing these characters and describing some of the scary stuff that's in there.
Yeah.
A little more detail on that.
Yeah. And I mean, I do have multiple other books in the pipeline that I'm working on.
Same genre?
Kind of, sort of. One I'm working on now is, it's kind of like a 40s noir detective style, but the main character, he has a demon that latched onto him. So he's like half supernatural, half human. And he's going through essentially his world, trying to figure out why the demon attached, and he's being shown a whole different side of the city that he thought he once knew as a detective.
All right. So you're going to keep writing. You just got to try to figure out how you want to get it out there.
Yeah.
You don't feel real comfortable in front of people.
I wouldn't say I'm not comfortable in front of people. I just don't want, because I know there's people out there who are like hardcore readers, who like insane readers.
Okay.
And, you know, my style is not for everybody because it's not very big. Because like I said, I like getting to the point, and I don't want to leave people rambling for, 5 chapters.
Well, I mean, have people read it that you know? Are they being honest with you?
I would like to say yes, but
Listen, Tyler, I'm going to tell you this. Give this book to somebody you trust who's going to say, Tyler, I need more information here.
Yeah.
Tyler, sounds like you're on a good track here. Give me more. Give me less. This is confusing. Because everybody will tell you writing is rewriting. Don't send that manuscript in until like 5 people you trust. If you really want to do this and like you really want to sell some books and you really want to be a good writer, you got to do that.
I actually have a friend, him and his wife are big readers, and he actually read the first book I ever published by myself. And he's like, that was actually really good, but I want more. He's like, I want more on the main character.
Well, that's what makes it interesting, right?
Yeah.
Is when you can relate to these characters, when you can see yourself in the character, when you kind of get into the psychological stuff.
Yeah.
Tyler, you're on your way, and it must be such a great outlet for you. Yeah, I mean, because you probably just think a lot all day. You've probably got your head in projects and figuring stuff out. And
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Tyler Ennis, Halls of the Damned. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.